We'd like to welcome each and every individual to the podcast EQ for CPAs and those we serve. And we are going through a series on how to become great problem solvers. If you think you're a great problem solver, well, then maybe this series isn't for you. That may be the first problem. Like, I don't know, for you, Bill, have you found that the more you know, the more you know you don't know?
Absolutely. I have to evaluate that every day.
And it seems like a lot of people maybe don't, which is strange to me.
There's always things to learn and better ways to do it.
So Misty and Shannon, has this series impacted you as much as it has me? Misty?
Participation.
I think it's hard to self-reflect on how we are impacting, I guess, others just because we're used to how we are.
You know, that's some good stuff right there, actually. Does everyone know why Bill and I have an advantage over maybe all of you on here? No? The reason is because we have adult children and we have grandchildren. And we can look at our children and there's many things that we say, wow, you know, praise God that they are the way they are. And then other things, it's like, you know, I don't know that I did that good as a dad. And then what's the world going to be like, for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. So today, like, we've been through communication. So the 12 key skills in problem solving is communication, ask questions, attentive listener, think outside the box, humble, growing, seers, correct things before they happen, protect, mistakes equal learning, take correction well, learning at a core level, work with difficult people, better ourselves, others, and others around us. So today we're going through. So if you haven't really figured out the communication, I mean, for sure, if you haven't watched it, these build on one another. So it's like, in college, 100 level courses, 200, 300, 400 level courses. So as we get deeper into this, if you haven't really mastered, the beginning lessons, you're going to struggle with the more advanced ones. I'm just saying. And you probably will sit in and say, well, that was kind of a stupid session. Like, why is the owner of my company, or why is my leader, or why is my mom or dad or my grandparent, like, why are they making me listen to these things? I don't understand them. I don't understand. It's like, because you have problems, and everybody, like anyone in leadership around you, wants you to help to solve your own problems. They just do. So let's dig into the attentive listener. Let's start out with Misty. Misty, why, like, how do you think, like Bill saw within you that you're, an attentive and active listener? Like, what makes you a really good listener?
I guess just paying attention, just wanting to learn more, wanting to, be able to solve my own problems and know what's going on.
Does that seem pretty simple and common sense and basic to you?
Yes, sir.
And when other people don't do that, does this frustrate you?
Absolutely.
Good. I thought I might be the only one out there that is frustrated. I'm like it's just weird. And it's, I don't know if you found this to be true, Misty, but it's always interesting to me, not only professionally, but personally too, where people say, Mark, you're not listening to me. I'm like, okay, here's what I heard you say. And they're like, well, yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, okay, so I heard the words at least. This is what I think you mean. And they're like, well, that's not what I meant. It's like, well, that's what you said. You're using words that you're not meaning and you're meaning words that you're not saying. It's like, I'm confused. Like, I don't, like, what is it? And then I say, so what am I saying? And they have no idea, like none, like zero, zilch. They're like, they can't even repeat the words, much less the meaning. And I'm like, I don't understand people. They're strange to me. This is why these podcasts are so important, because I can try to help understand. Shannon, being attentive and active listener, like, why do you think you're good at it?
Honestly, I don't know why, other than I feel like everyone should be. I feel like that's an easy question. Like, how do you not just listen and pay attention? Because then you're gonna look stupid.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
So many people, Mark, just want to talk and they don't listen.
Why, Bill?
They have the gift of gab. That's all they want to do. All they want to do is talk about. And some of the stuff is non-essential.
My wife isn't here with me today, otherwise she'd come up and slap me. But so we go to Denver to move our youngest daughter to Denver from the Chicago area. Dad drives the 16 hours, packs up everything, drives the 16 hours. It's been an interesting week. And then we fly in last night at like midnight. And then we go, anyways, we get home finally, because we have to drive from Chicago to Indiana. We get home finally at 4:00. And on the way home, we took Lyft for the very first time. We've never done that before. It was a little like, oh, that's it. And so we're in the car for 45 minutes. And the guy said nothing. All he said was, the address? Says, is this the address? Yes. And then there was silence the whole way. Not one word, not one word. He was silent. My wife was silent. I didn't say anything. And then he says, do I turn on Prairie? Those are the only two things. So we give him, a pretty good tip. But I say on the way home, the 2.5-hour drive home from there, I say, my wife, she's like, man, it was so quiet. Like, we didn't say, like, no, like, it was nice. It's our first experience, but there was no talking, like nothing, silence for the 45 minutes. And so I'm saying, I wish we wouldn't have given him like a 25% tip. I wish we'd have given him like a 50% tip. She's like, why? I said, because he said nothing. He said nothing. And so it is weird. It's almost like my son-in-law, he has a word for it. I think it's word lettuce or word salad or something, where it's like, it doesn't have a lot of substance. And so Misty, what would be a suggestion you would have to help people learn to be attentive, active listeners?
Someone just walked in, so she had to help them.
All right, go ahead, Shannon. Like, what would be a
Um,
suggestion you'd have?
Suggestion? Listen before speaking and thinking of what you're gonna say. I mean, people, I think, already are thinking about their response rather than truly caring what the person is saying. Or, I mean, I don't really know.
Yes, you actually do know. You actually do. It's mind-numbing to me how people talk before they think. And when they're talking, they're not thinking while they're even talking. And then they don't even remember what they said. Like, it's baffling to me. Bill, do you have any suggestions?
I think you have to be, I mean, you have to be an attentive listener. You have to be engaged with the person. You can't have distractions, not have rapport or understand where the person's coming from.
And how do people get to that place?
Well, they have to have they have to care. They have to care about the other person and what they're feeling and what they're thinking and what their problem is.
And people think, well, Bill, I do care. Like, why are you even telling me that? I care. But do they really care? I mean, so how do you get people to care, Bill?
You have to build a relationship and rapport between you and them.
Well, I think to care, you have, like, the caring comes first. And then the rapport comes as like caring, like 2020 was the year of caring for me. And I focused the whole year on being a caring person, and the things that I saw and learned, like, it was crazy. Like, we can think people are caring for us when they're not. We can think people aren't caring for us when they are. Like, we were having lunch in Denver, and our youngest daughter, Angela, she said, you know, Dad, there was a work situation that she had a few months back. And I said, honey, what were you thinking? And she got all mad at me. She was really, Dad, that's not what I need. I need encouragement. I'm like, well, honey, I gave you encouragement the last time this happened. And she said, I've been thinking, Dad, like, maybe that's what I did need from you, was maybe a kick in the, tush. Like, so, like, we can think we're caring when we're not. We can think, others can think we're not caring when we are. So does anybody have anyone jump in, everybody, like, does anyone have any ideas on how to help people that think they're caring to realize maybe we're not so caring? And how do we become more caring? I mean, I obviously have some ideas, but they're probably not as good as yours, but they are definitely thought out. I never know on the podcast how much time to.
Well, do you have a vested interest in whatever they have issue with?
Okay. I like that. Anybody else have any other ideas?
Well, we're supposed to rejoice with those that rejoice and weep with those that weep. So you have to ask the Lord to give you a heart for other people.
Right. Now that's what I'm talking about. Like, what if we don't have a vested interest? What if we don't see any benefit in what we're doing? Like we were, where were we? We were with a lot of people. Oh, it was at the airport, at the Denver airport. At one point in business years ago, I did more business out of Denver than anywhere else in the country. And I flew in and out of Denver more than any other place. I mean, it was crazy how many times I've gone in. And I just looked at the masses, I mean, masses of people. And I just had compassion for them. And I said, man, I got to get going on that Life GPS mobile app, because I could impact every one of these individuals. So I think it's Sue, right, that shared that? Yeah, I think so.
It was
Sonia.
No,
Yes.
it was
Sonia,
Sonia. Sorry, I had
Gotcha.
to unmute again.
Yeah. So Sonia, so I think it's a worldview. Like whatever, whatever your spiritual belief system is, it's a worldview that, like, I believe, like, my worldview, I hope, governs my daily actions. And, so my dad was a pastor, as you guys all know that have listened to the past ones. I think I've shared that probably more than once. And so I was raised in church 3 times a week for 40 years. Like it was just, this. And it's like, I go to church, and like, if you go to church, then you're obviously a caring person. I mean, that's what you're told. Like, if you're in church all the time, you must be a caring person. It's like, am I really? So my worldview is, my worldview is everyone is created in God's image. Like, it's a spiritual worldview. It's not a religious worldview. It's a spiritual. It's like I believe God created me in his image, and he created all the other 8 billion plus people. And so this person in front of me, God's put there for a reason, and I need to care no matter what. And so when we look at the flawless thinking model, there's 26 major elements in it, and there's thousands of sub elements. And so it's easiest to learn when you just go down to segment 1, which is mind and time. If you read this, like, have you, and again, you can all interrupt me, please do, because once I get going, man, it's hard to stop. But have you ever written something and you're like, dang, that was good? Like, man, I impress myself. I don't impress myself that frequently. When I see some of the things around me that, as a dad and a grandfather, I'm like, man, am I humbled. So this, though, I would have to be honest, I was impressed. I'm like, this is good. So segment 1, mind and time. Learning to always be humble and thankful helps us to ask curious questions, which help us to see our feelings for what they are, revealing the truth about our past, present, and future. Interesting, right? Like, we don't see our past as it is. Like, it's weird. Like, Bill, I don't know if any of your kids ever do this, but my kids, man, they bring up stuff. And I'm like, I do not remember that at all. Or that's a weird situation for you young parents like Elise out there. You got to get some stuff documented down, because your kids will come back and they'll be like, this is how it happened. I'm like, I remember that situation. I remember it totally different than you remember it. And you can have 3 kids all there at the same time with the same parents, and all 3 kids will remember it differently. And it's like, huh.
Yeah. My older kids bring up stuff and say, you didn't do it this way for us with the younger kids. So, yeah.
Well, I'll never forget having, dinner in Texas with your wife and your son and Kenny and I. And your wife just, Angie just like touched me at the core level. I mean, just at the very essence level, where this is what I heard. This is not what she said necessarily. And if it is what she said, it's not necessarily what she meant, but it is what I heard. And what I heard is a heart of a mom that said, yes, we do maybe probably treat our youngest one different than we did the older ones. But we have, maybe more time or more money, or maybe we can do something, so we do. And I just said, yeah, like, I get that. How do you, I don't know. It's interesting. So segment 2 is DNA for people, the personalities. Do people ever confuse you? Do we ever confuse ourselves? If people don't confuse us, if we don't confuse ourselves, well, we're probably really not looking deep into why we or others see, think, and do the things we see, think, and do. We probably aren't even being childlike and asking questions that could be life-changing, our life-changing, or changing our, like, it's so cool. It's so cool when you have young grandkids. You find out what their parents are saying that they don't want anybody else to hear. Like, you don't think your young kids, your 2, your 3-year-old, are hearing what you're saying. They don't seem to be hearing. Like, they don't seem to be listening, but they are. They're hearing the things that you don't want them to hear, and they'll actually repeat it. And you're going, really, honey? Like, to my daughter, like, wow, this is what Micaiah said. This is what Jojo said. This is what Daniel and Trevor said. And it's like, huh, you haven't taught them, don't tell grandpa what you hear. Segment 3 is quantum thinking. Albert Einstein said we can never solve a problem on the level it was created. What does this mean? It means that we create our own problems based on how we think. It seems that the only way we can solve our own problems is learn to take ownership, extreme ownership, work. And I'm not talking just physical work. I'm talking emotional, relational, spiritual, moral. I'm talking like work, like being raised very conservative Baptist. They didn't really talk about that, like working out your salvation. That was never talked about. It's like, well, it's there. What does this mean? You know, pretty sure it's not doing good works. It's like, I don't think that but it's work, it's struggling. And the older I get, the more I struggle with things. Like, I'm like, I thought I was clear on this, but it's not. And then caring more and carrying it a different. So the ownership, the outer ring of this came from the model when we went ahead and did the course. Tom Kuntz and Peter Miles, myself, and a bunch of others did the course on leverage, the magical arts of positive motivation and manipulation. So we think of motivation as being positive, but you can motivate negative, and manipulation as being negative, but you can manipulate positive. So we don't really dig into the words and say, what are people really, when we're hearing, like being raised in the Amish, or now living in the Amish community, it's like, it's so cool because they don't learn English until they're 6 years old, by and large. So it's like in a foreign country. And so the things you say, they don't understand. And the things they say, you don't understand. It forces you to be a better listener. Segment 4 is 5 steps to success. This comes from Tom Kuntz. We say we want something, but are we willing to do the work and make the sacrifices needed to get what we say we want? Do we and others live in a delusional world in which we think we will be given things without the work and sacrifice? This is not going to work well for us if we think this way, and it's not going to work well for society. And then segment 5 is of the flawless thinking. So this all comes back into this model here, this one model here. All of these are like the 26 different elements. So you go into the sub elements. It's really a cool model. It took over 40 years to figure this thing out. So the internalization. Does it ever frustrate you when people say, I understand? And you're pretty sure that they really don't understand. Do we ever say, I understand, when in fact we may be just being lazy and don't really understand and live in a delusional world of our own minds? If you think you understand this model, well, the creator of the model says he doesn't even understand the model. So it may be good to be humble and take a bit more time, as Henry Ford says, and ruminate. What is this? If you don't think you want your life to change forever, well, maybe you started to die rather than started to live. If you think, I've got a pretty good life, I don't really need to change. I don't even want to change. So this model was actually developed as part of the leverage course. And one of the backstage passes time, I was saying to Tom, I'm like, I'm so frustrated. And I've got some frustrations now. Like, there's 3 elements to frustration: how hard you work, how much you care, and your level of expectation of yourself, systems, and others. Write that down. So if you want to go ahead, if you're frustrated, you have anxiety and stress, nothing against the medical community. I'm just saying, maybe medication isn't the best thing. Maybe that's good. Maybe it's healthy. Maybe it's healthy anxiety. Maybe it's healthy stress. Maybe it's healthy frustration. So the 3 elements to frustration: how hard you work, how much you care, your level of expectation of yourself, systems, and others, in that order. And so we think of anxiety as bad. We think of frustration as bad. But it's not. Like, if I work less, care less, and lower my expectation, my frustration level is going to go down. And maybe that's okay in the moment. Maybe I just Don't need to have a heart attack, Dad. Okay, so maybe in the moment I need to, but we're going to get stuck. So the opposite response is when we get frustrated, don't work less, care less, and lower your expectations of yourself first, and then the systems you use, and then other people. Increase the amount of work, increase the amount of care. Because if you don't work, it's hard to be frustrated. If you don't care, like if you don't care about anything or anyone, you're not frustrated because you don't care. And then if you have no expectations of yourself or any of the systems that we use or others, you don't get frustrated, which makes you feel good in the moment, but you don't make a dimensional breakthrough professionally. Like you want to earn more money, you want to see more success, you want to learn more, grow more, be more productive. Well, then you have to work harder, care more, increase your expectation first of myself. And once I'm doing myself, get the beam out of my own eye. Then the next thing is the systems that I'm using. And then the next thing is other people. If I've got the beam out of my own eye, then I can look at the splinter in somebody else's eye. And that's what we're actually called to do. So again, a lot packed in here, but think of two other people. Like this isn't just for CPA and accounting firms, right? This is for think about every one of your business clients, and could their employees benefit from this? I think so. Like, what about my kids? Like, I'm thinking, how do I get my kids? Maybe I'll pay them. Like, listen to this. I mean, this is, you think of the magic of it. Bill, any closing thoughts, comments?
No, it's really makes us think about how we are receiving information and processing it, and making sure we've got the two ears to hear what they're actually saying and understand from their point of view. I like this, Mark. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You and Misty Shannon inspired the whole thing. When I read what you shared, I'm like, this is magical. This should be like an entire course, seriously. But the only way it really benefits is if we come in and say, am I really that good communicator? Do you really ask that good a question? Am I really an attentive, active listener? Shannon, any closing comments or thoughts you have?
No, sir.
Misty, how about you? Is Misty on?
Yeah, no, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
So I want you ladies to participate more. And I'm guessing everybody else does too, especially if my wife or kids are listening to this. They've heard all of this. It's like Snoopy, like with the adults, it's wah, 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 wah. And so I'm dead serious. Like, you both saying something, you say it in a different way. And my kids, those that are closest to me, you'll say something that will resonate with them. And this is true for, not only parents with children, but it's true for employer, employee, owner, manager, and those that are managing. We kind of tune people out. We kind of don't listen to them. If you have any questions, I mean, for sure, pass this along to two people that could benefit from it. And then if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in this podcast, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the US, 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.